This is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How are you doing on this Thursday? Thanks, everybody, for jumping in and joining us right here on the Joe Gaither Show. You're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Listening to us maybe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or Amazon. We appreciate whatever platform you are using to join the show. As always, you can find the show on BamaCentral.com, your Sports Illustrated home for the Alabama Crimson Tide. We invite you guys to jump in and join us today on the comments section. You can send a comment, question, query, or complaint at Joe Gaither 6 on your favorite social media machine as we go along the day. We're going to have hopefully a fun show today. We're going to be a lot smarter today because we're going to be joined by Katie Windham, and we're going to talk Alabama softball. Alabama softball gets going in its 19th straight regional right here in the NCAA tournament. Gets underway tomorrow at the Rhoads House. You guys can get your tickets if you want, or you can watch it on ESPN Plus, or follow the coverage on BamaCentral.com. Follow Katie Windham at Katie Windham _ on the Twitter machine. Katie, thanks so much for giving us your time today and giving us your expertise. How are you?
I'm good, Joe. I don't know about the expertise. I feel like I'm a little bit out of the loop. Also, I don't know if we'll be playing softball tomorrow with the weather forecast in Tuscaloosa, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Absolutely. Well, you have been a touch out of the loop just a little because you've been not on vacation working. You've been down on a mission trip in Costa Rica. So I haven't caught up with you since then. What did you do and kind of how was your time in South America, Central America?
Central America. Yeah. I was out of the country last week with a group from FCA, which is I work part-time for FCA at Alabama. We had a really good group of student athletes, some football, soccer, swimming, volleyball, gymnastics, track. So it was just a great group. And we were down there for 6 days doing some sports camp, doing some mission work, working with a local pastor down there that we work with. And so it was a great trip. And I didn't have phone service down there, but I'd have Wi-Fi when we'd get back to the hotel at night. So I was a little behind on the Cliff News while I was down there. The SEC softball tournament, keeping up. Let's see, we left that morning right as the game was starting, and some people in the group had phone service. And somebody had told me Alabama was up 2-0 in the first over LSU, and I was like, wow, 2 runs, that's a lot for this team lately. And then I based on our schedule that day, I thought there's no way that by the time we got back to the hotel that the game would still be going on. And as you know, if you follow Alabama softball, anyone watching right now, that game went to 14 innings. And Alabama ended up losing their first game in the SEC tournament. But it was a good trip down there, and I'm ready to, if softball does get played tomorrow, to be back covering something in person. This afternoon, I'm heading to Rhoads in a little bit for the pre-regional press conferences, and so that'll be good too to kind of talk to Murph and the players and some of the other teams in this regional as well.
You'll be able to see some of that coverage right here on the BamaCentral YouTube channel, but all of it right there at BamaCentral's homepage, whatever Patrick Murphy says today, and maybe some of the what some of the other opponents as well about Alabama. We'll see that coverage on BamaCentral.com. So you had a look. It was a blessing in disguise to not have to sit there for 14 innings watching, oh my gosh, batter after batter after batter go up against the LSU pitcher and really come up empty. And so basically, from that result, I'm going to put myself out on a limb. It's okay if you didn't listen on Monday, but on Friday, I basically was like, okay, the hosting bid is probably out the window. And that was obviously ignorance and not being kind of aware of the RPI and some of the other things at play. Sunday, Alabama does get a hosting bid, not the 16 seed as they were projected, the 14 seed. And so surprised a lot of the maybe uneducated like myself. What was it about this team? First season under Patrick Murphy, under 500 in the SEC, but it was still strong enough to be considered one of the 16 best teams in the country and hosting a regional bid this weekend.
Yeah, I think if you looked at what this team did this season, or really if you look just the eye test the last couple months, you would say this team is not a hosting team. They don't deserve to be a hosting team, if you're just being honest. But if you follow softball bracketology, which obviously bracketology in softball, there's not as much as there is in basketball, but Gray Robertson, the one of the Alabama softball radio guys, he also does stuff with D1 softball, I believe, and he kind of does his own bracketology and some other people. And really, even despite the series losses mounting up, it kind of Alabama was still in that hosting conversation, because really over the last 2 weekends of the season, teams that were in that 13 to 16 or 13 to 18 kind of range for the bubble of hosting, we're pretty much doing as bad, if not worse, than Alabama. We're having some worse losses. And at the end of the day, 16 teams have to host. And Alabama had overall, they had a lot of losses, not only won one SEC series, but the key, I think, for them, why they were still able to host, is that they did avoid getting swept, which meant they did pick up some good wins. Look, they beat Tennessee one game, they beat Georgia one game, they beat Florida one game, they beat A&M one game. All these teams that were at the top of the league, good RPI, good stats. They had a good non-conference strength of schedule, which, looking at the schedule coming into this year, it didn't seem like a super tough schedule compared to some things they've had in the past non-conference wise. They weren't playing in any of the big name tournaments, but it kind of ended up being, some teams were probably a little better than they thought, and they didn't suffer any bad losses. Their worst loss this year was to South Alabama, who is still an NCAA tournament team, and I think ended up in the 30s RPI-wise. So I think that was kind of the main reason they were able to host. And then, there's a lot of people online that are like, oh, it's because of Rhoads, which technically, the NCAA, that shouldn't be a factor. I'm sure it is a little bit that Alabama has the largest. Well, Oklahoma now does technically with their new updated stadium. But it doesn't hurt that Rhoads can hold 4,000 people. And now, whether this weekend I think is going to impact that a little bit, but it'll be close to those crowds, especially on Saturday and Sunday, if the weather does cooperate a little bit.
Well, we are kind of moving on to a new season now that the postseason, I mean, it was on us last week, but now it's really upon us. And so with that being said, you can kind of encapsulate the year. Going into the year, it's like, oh my gosh, how is Alabama going to replace Montana Fouts? Montana Fouts, she's been the queen of the circle for the last 4 or 5 years, basically dominating. Now she's gone. You look at the pitching, I mean, really the consternation was about the hitting. The pitching, I mean, there was not Montana Fouts, but as a staff, you had Caleb Beaver, who had a really good year, 1.78 ERA. Jocelyn Brisky came in as well, and Jayla Torrance pretty much was kind of a little bit better of her previous season self. How would you assess Patrick Murphy and the coaching staff's job replacing such a superstar in Montana Fouts?
Yeah, I mean, even Murph said before the season started that was his biggest question heading into the years. What do you do post Montana Fouts? And like you said, pitching was not the problem this year. Caleb Beaver was great, which I've seen a lot of people. There's been a lot of online discourse lately, obviously, about the state of the program and Patrick Murphy and just kind of how things are. And I've seen people saying that he hasn't, he's behind in the times because he doesn't utilize the transfer portal. Well, I mean, Alabama's best pitcher this year is from the portal and was one of the best pitchers available in the portal. So he did what he needed to do to replace Montana. Now, I'm sure we're going to talk about the offense in a little bit, that maybe they didn't address that as much. But, yeah, Caleb Beaver's been great. Really kind of late in the year, she started struggling a little bit, where she struggled to put together 2 good starts in a weekend. But, I mean, you look at what her and then Jocelyn Brisky really came on strong toward the end of the season, the true freshman. She really had one bad start against A&M. And other than that, she was either great in her starts and allowed 1 earned run or less, or at least kept Alabama in the game and gave them a chance to win outside of the A&M start. And she missed a little bit of time with an injury in the middle of the year that kind of hampered her for a little bit. And maybe Alabama would have been able to win more series if she was available, but also with the offense, I don't know. But, yeah, I think Lance McMahon, the pitching coach, has done a great job. I think, towards the end of Alabama's non-conference schedule, at one point, like pretty far in, or a good chunk into the season, Alabama had the best team ERA in the country. Ailey Johnson, the LSU transfer, looked really good at some points this year. Jayla's looked good at some point. She's also struggled a little bit. Lauren Espin got hurt earlier in the year and is not going to pitch for the rest of the year. She still hits a little bit, plays in the field some. But, yeah, the pitching's been really good. And outside of just a couple of starts, has given Alabama a chance to win every game. Has been phenomenal, giving up, 1 run or no earned runs for extended periods of time. And it's just not getting support from the offense, which has been an ongoing problem for the last couple of years. Even was here.
Yeah, let's dig into that just a little bit, because this year was okay. You get an extra assistant coaching spot, and you can hire a full-time hitting coach. Part of that was NCAA restrictions kind of being lifted, and Patrick Murphy said, "Okay, great, I can fill it out and hire a hitting coach," and hires Adam Arbor, who was already on the staff, kind of as a volunteer, basically promoted. And obviously, the offense has not really taken a huge step forward. It's been, you still hearing the same, oh, it's pass the bat down. We're not passing the bat down. And maybe some of the online Discord has been, oh, there's too many. It used to be too many slappers in the lineup. Well, there's not many slappers in the lineup at all anymore. And so to your point about Patrick Murphy evolving, you've kind of moved past that offensively. What do you think has been the primary issue for the offense? I've heard, oh, they're swinging at junk. Oh, their pitch selection's not good. But then you hear they're just not good. Like the simpleton, they're just not good. That's not a real answer. What's maybe the key, or what would you say has been the biggest issue for this team offensively?
The biggest issue, well, I mean, first of all, just in general, people don't get on base a ton. They don't get a lot of hits, so it's hard to drive people in when there's not people on base. They don't have a ton of power. When every week when I kind of do the how to watches and I'm comparing Alabama's stats to the team they're playing, or I do the team leaders at the end, Alabama's been stuck on team leader home run of 6 for weeks now, because it was Abby Dukeshire, and she's still at 6. Now a couple of people have tied her. Jenna Johnson has 6. Marley Giles has 6. She's also missed time, which has hurt offensively, because she had been one of Alabama's best players. I believe she got hurt in the Kentucky series, so she missed basically the last half of SEC play. But they don't have a ton of power. But really, the biggest issue with this team the last 3 years offensively is you're missing the person, or it's like a quality on the whole team that you're missing the ability to get the clutch hit when you have people on, because there are people on this team that do have good plate discipline, that draw some walks, get hit by pitches. It's like when you have that runner on second base with less than 2 outs, like you need to be able to bring him in. Like you need somebody to come up with a clutch hit. And in that LSU game, in the Auburn game, game 2 of the series that went to 11 innings, that Kenley Cahalan did finally come through with that clutch hit in the 11th inning. But you have so many opportunities leading up to that you think almost like by luck, like surely someone's just going to get a hit, like something's going to fall, like somebody's going to, and it just like seems to not happen inning after inning, game after game, series after series, that people just don't come through with the clutch hit. And I say that, and obviously at some points it has happened. Like the one game against Tennessee that they won, which also to your slapping point, a lot of people think Alabama shouldn't use slappers. I mean, slapping is still an effective part of the game. I think Alabama just hasn't had necessarily great slappers lately. But Kristen White, she did come through with the clutch hit, and it wasn't an infield slap. So it can still be an important part of the game. So there have been times this year people have come up with clutch hits. It's just not consistently enough. And they don't pass the bat down. They don't, I think now going back to the A&M series, which that series offensively, they actually did score more runs than the others. The pitching was just not great that weekend. But I think since that series, so you go to the Arkansas series, the Tennessee series, the Auburn series, and the first game of the SEC tournament, there's not been a single game where Alabama has scored in more than 1 inning. Because the Arkansas series, they get shut out twice, and then the one game they won, they scored all their runs in the 5th inning. The Tennessee series, they get shut out twice. They score their only run in the 7th inning. The Auburn series, they score in the 7th inning of game 1. They score in the 11th inning of game 2. They get shut out in game 3. First game of the SEC tournament, they score in the 1st inning and don't score for 13 straight innings. That's tough to watch. That's not fun to watch if you are only scoring in 1 inning of a game or not scoring at all. And so it's just like, it's like they can't build on momentum within a game. They can't build on momentum within a series. Like sometimes when they've won, like when they win game 2 against Auburn, or even the Auburn series, game 1, they lose, but they score late in the game. They rally. They almost come back. They don't. They win game 2, but it takes them a long time to score. And then game 3, they get shut out by Auburn's number 3 pitcher, which in baseball, losing to a number 3 is not a bad thing. In softball, getting shut out by a number 3 is not great, especially most pitching staffs in college softball aren't that deep that in conference play your number 3 should be able to shut somebody out. And it's like they just can't carry over momentum. So I don't know what the issue is, and it seems like, too, that the coaching staff doesn't either, because things don't change. Like I always think, okay, this is the weekend things are going to turn around. Like the Auburn series, talking to them that week in the midweek. It's a rivalry. It's the end of the year. They need to win to secure. You thought maybe at the time they needed to win the series to secure for sure hosting a regional. And then they get down there and it's just, no, that the offense just doesn't come together. So I don't know what it is. You talked about this the first year under Adam Arbor. They haven't really taken a step forward. I think really you could argue they've taken a step back. If you look at the batting averages, pretty much everyone's is worse except for Callie Hevelin. Kinley Halen's is slightly better, but her RBI numbers are down. You look at somebody like Bailey Dowling, who's a senior, that at one time Patrick Murphy said was, had the potential to be one of the best hitters in program history. And I think now she's below, let's see.
238 average.
Yeah.
238 average, her on base
3 home runs, 15 RBIs. She's been way down in power, and she's somebody you would be hoping to rely on a little more at the plate. And I don't think you can place it all on Adam. And a lot of times I'm never a proponent of, or generally you want to give a coach more than 1 year in any sport, any position, any job to get settled in. But I think looking at the numbers for this year and seeing that no one's really taken a step forward, most people have taken a step back, and just how poor the production's been overall, it's hard to think that. And look, we could see something great this weekend offensively. I don't necessarily think we will, but we could. But I'm not necessarily saying that, things should be solely pinned on him, but it's not a great look that it's the first year that they've been able to have a dedicated hitting coach, and this is how the offense has looked.
Right, and so that brings us really kind of to this weekend, and I ask you, as someone who's paid real close attention to the program for a long time, you're hosting your 19th straight regional, so obviously gold star, good stuff, that's great. But then you mix it with the frustration of, oh my gosh, this team's really tough to watch and really tough to kind of believe in, because you don't know how consistent, as but to all your points. And so from the fan base, you hear a lot of the a lot to your point. The game's passed Patrick Murphy by. Well, obviously, looking at it from 10,000 feet up, you're still hosting a regional. You're still a top 14 team in the country. You have a good weekend here, you might be in the last in the last 8 or so. Like, you could be in the supers, and then to the College World Series. Sorry. So it's how do you balance the 2012 was a great memory, dancing in the rain, you won a national championship, and the program really is still very nationally relevant. Very nationally relevant. But you have this kind of undercurrent of, has the program taken a step back in the last 2 years? How do you balance that as someone who's covered the program, and how do you think that really administration is going to kind of treat things? Does this weekend are the results this weekend very, very important to how the outlook is going to how it's going to be written at the end of the year, or is it basically, the noise doesn't matter, Patrick Murphy still top 14 seed, the program is in great shape, you'll just keep rolling on?
I don't know if there's really anything dependent on this weekend alone. It is interesting that regionals used to be a time that Alabama just seemingly steamrolled people. It was normally run rule after run rule or easy games up until 2 years ago. They'd never lost in regionals, and or since the format moved to super regional format, they hadn't lost, and they hadn't lost a game at all in regionals in 43 attempts or something like that. And then they were eliminated 2 years in the regionals 2 years ago. Last year they lost a game but ended up advancing out of the regional eventually. And so I don't think things are going to be dependent on this. I think it's still going to be kind of the whole body of work. For all the fire Patrick Murphy's on social media, I think that's absurd. I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't think it should happen. Yes, the last 3 years have not been great, even though they did make Oklahoma City last year. Because, 2 years ago, like I said, they lost in regionals for the first time. Last year, I believe they had their most losses in a season since Murphy's first year. And it was shocking last year that they were the number 5 overall seed based on their overall body of work. I think people thought they would host regionals, but maybe not supers. And then this year, like you said, it's a tough balance because, they are hosting regionals, which is most teams in college softball would kill for that. But things have not been great the last 3 years, which is hard to say that when they're in Oklahoma City last year. And so, I think kind of going back to talking about hitting earlier, my solution, and this is someone without, a ton of knowledge on the college softball coaching or assistant coaching landscape out there, would be to go and maybe hire a proven hitting coach that has more experience, that has more results because the way the offense has been this year has just been horrid. I mean, right now you don't have a single starter batting over 300. And you say, oh, like, the 300's good. Yeah, in Major League Baseball, it's hard to hit 300, but there's still people that are. In softball, you want to have multiple people over 300. Southeastern Louisiana, one of the teams coming in this weekend to Tuscaloosa, all 9 of their starters are hitting over 300, which is super impressive. No matter who, what league you play in or your opponents, that you're able to get on base with hits that consistently. Even Clemson, let's see, they have 6 people batting over 300. Alabama has none. Like that's just not good. Like there's so many things you can point to that are not good offensively. So that would be that's been the problem the last 3 seasons. That's what's got to get fixed. And I'm not, like a mechanics person. I can't go fix people's swings. I don't know enough about swings. I do know people that do that tell me stuff about it that, there's people on this team that don't have, the best swinging mechanics sometimes, but I don't think the program has been declining the last 3 years. I don't think they're in a major decline. I don't think major overhauls need to happen. I don't think things need to be imploded. I think it will be interesting to see what happens this weekend if they are able to make it to Supers. Because like I said earlier, the reason why they're hosting regionals is they were able to avoid being swept. They did beat good teams this year. They do have some good wins on their resume. They've proven that they can beat anybody or hang with anybody in the country. What they haven't been proven yet so far this year is that they can beat them twice in one weekend. And that's what you have to do at this point in the year. You have to beat the teams twice to move on to the next stage. And ultimately, like once you get to OKC, the championship series is the best 2 of 3, which I'm not projecting this team gets there at all. I'm just saying this is the time of year when you do have to beat people twice. And this team hasn't been able to do that so far this year.
All right, so let's get into this weekend specifically. The softball gets going tomorrow at 2 o'clock. You get a little appetizer with, it's scheduled to get going tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Clemson against Southeastern Louisiana. You can watch it on the ACC network if you have that in your cable package. You can follow. Probably we'll be tweeting things about it sporadically just to get whet your appetite. Clemson, pretty good team rolling in here. So you outlined it in the how to watch. You can read about the whole series on BamaCentral.com. Clemson bringing in the Collegiate Player of the Year, Valerie Cagle, and they've got a good little pitching staff. I think I saw they were at 21 in the RPI. So you're not looking at an easy weekend, really. Obviously, UC Upstate is Alabama's first matchup, and you're expecting a win there, but once you get to Saturday, I think you're really going to be rolling the dice. Tell us really about the challenge of this weekend.
Yeah, this isn't an easy regional for sure. Clemson came in 2021, which I think was it was one of their first years of their program. They're a relatively new softball program, but started out pretty strong. And yeah, I think they're a team overall this season that has maybe underachieved compared to preseason expectations, especially with Valerie Cagle, the reigning National Player of the Year. She pitches and hits and has been really dominant in the circle the last 2 seasons. Hasn't been as dominant this year, has still been good. But Clemson kind of, I think, also suffered from some of the same things Alabama did this season where they struggled to beat maybe good teams, especially multiple times. And so I think they're a team coming into the season that people thought would be hosting a regional, would maybe be hosting a super regional, but because of where their RPI and stuff ended up, they're coming to Tuscaloosa. And so it's not going to be easy for Alabama because it was interesting looking at their stats that, Cagle's not even the one who's thrown the most innings for them this season. It's actually Reagan Spencer, and then Millie Thompson leads the team in ERA. So they have a pitching staff that runs 3 deep. And then, like I said earlier, they have 6 people batting above 300. So they're a solid team. It's not just when I've talked about in the past regionals being a time where Alabama kind of breezed through it. Outside of a few exceptions, there was the year Alabama, I think it was 2017, when they were the 16 seed in Minnesota, who had been ranked number 1 all year, came to the regional because their RPI wasn't good, and that was a close regional. But this, I think, will be another close one, especially just with Alabama's offensive struggles. And then also, there's also no guarantee that it's Clemson they face because, like I said earlier, Southeastern Louisiana has a good team. They have they're obviously a good hitting team. They beat Ole Miss this year, who's at the bottom of the SEC, but still is an SEC and NCAA tournament team. And then they hung close with LSU, who's, I believe, a 9 seed, and people thought it might be a top 8 seed. So either of those teams can present Alabama issues. And even the first game, I mean, USC Upstate is the 4 seed in the regional, which means they should be the worst. But I mean, if the offense can't score runs, there's no guarantees they win. So the offense is going to have to play better this weekend. That's what it comes down to. And I think it's going to be interesting, too, to kind of see the pitching plan, because Beaver and Brisky have been obviously the best 2 pitchers on this team lately. And you would hope against an opponent like USC Upstate, you wouldn't necessarily have to use either of them. But I think also he's going to want Brisky to kind of get that regional experience as a true freshman for the first time, and then also just get her some innings in this kind of setting. And just also with the way the offense is, there a lot of times there's not margin for error. And so, it's not going to be just a breeze through weekend for Alabama. And I think it's definitely possible that they don't advance out of regionals for the second time in the last 3 years.
All right, and you mentioned the weather. I hadn't looked at it until this moment, but goodness gracious, it looks like Friday, stormy, showers and thunderstorms in the morning and evening, same on Saturday. So do you know the weather contingency plan? If they can't get it in on Friday, Saturday, will it just be an all-day Sunday affair? Will they extend into Monday? What's the requirements or contingency plans for bad weather?
Yeah, I'll ask that when I head up to Rhoads in a little bit. I'm sure they're wishing they could have played today or something, because it's a beautiful day outside right now. Or when I was outside earlier, it was. I would imagine there will be they'll try and get any games in they can on Saturday. I really don't think, based on stuff I saw earlier today, that I don't know if they'll be able to play on Friday at all.
Yeah.
Maybe Saturday evening they'll get some games in. I'm not really sure what the NCAA rules are for that, because obviously super regionals are up next, that teams have to get to that. And so I'm not sure if they play into Monday or not. There may also be like a certain amount of game. I don't know, because there's 14. It's not like it's just a 3-game series, or even like 1 or 2 games have to be played. There's a lot of games that have to be played. I think at least a minimum of 6.
2 on Friday, 2 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, right? And then I think it's 5 is the minimum, right? Because everybody's got to get eliminated twice.
It's double elimination. Yeah. Either way, there's a lot of games that have to be played, so I'm not sure. I'm sure the logistics, the operations team this weekend is not looking forward to things, but that's just how it is this time of year. It seems like even the SEC tournament last weekend, or all the conference tournaments, there wasn't great weather. There was extra inning games. It's just bring a good book with you, be prepared for delays, charge your phone, all that kind of stuff. But we'll keep you all updated on BamaCentral and on Twitter kind of about what plans are for moving forward, because I don't know if games are going to be played on Friday.
All right, my last question for Katie Windham, and you're watching us right here on the Joe Gaither Show. Follow Katie Windham at @KatieWindham_ for all our coverage, is about the next steps. If Alabama's able to get out of the regionals, they're paired up with the Knoxville regional, so you're very likely going to be going up to Tennessee unless some weird stuff happens up there this weekend. We've hit on last season just a little bit, and how it was a surprise to get to Oklahoma City. You beat Tennessee once already. I believe it was in Knoxville.
It was in Tuscaloosa.
Oh, sorry. You beat Tennessee once already. Is there a chance, if you slip through to if you win this weekend, could you pull the upset, get 2 out of 3 in Knoxville?
There's definitely a chance. It's like I said, this team has proven they can beat good teams. They did beat Tennessee. Tennessee. The problem with Tennessee is that Alabama struggles hitting, and Tennessee has the best 1-2 punch in the circle in the country with Carlin Pickens and Peyton Gottschall. So it would be tough. It would be a tall order, but it's definitely possible. And I think especially it'd be more possible if that means that they've advanced out of this weekend, which means probably they figured some things out. If they start swinging the bat better, if Marley Giles being back in the lineup helps some things, if some more people start get going outside of Kinley Cahalan, if the offense starts rolling a little bit, can that translate into super regionals? Of course, this is the time of year where people get hot. Anything can happen, kind of like in March Madness. In March, you never know what's going to happen. In May and softball in June, It's all about getting hot at the right time. And while this team has not been hot the last couple of months of the season, it's not out of the question. But I don't think most people would be picking that, and I don't think it would be likely. It is possible. But Tennessee is truly one of the best teams in the country this season with their pitching. They can beat anyone, and I think they're going to be a popular pick kind of to win it all with kind of the parity across the top of college softball this year. And I say that just in the sense of the last couple of years, it's just been Oklahoma, and it's been easy to assume or to know that that's who's going to win. And I think Oklahoma's lost 5 times now this year, which that seems so minuscule compared to other teams, but for them, that's a ton when they've been averaging, 1 loss a year the last couple of years. So there's more of an openness sense around college softball this year, especially what may happen in OKC, and Tennessee is kind of going to be one of the favorites. So it wouldn't be a great matchup for Alabama, but I think it is possible, and I think they would have the confidence of knowing the last time they faced them, they did beat them, and their pitching staff has been able to meaning Alabama, has been able to shut down Tennessee's offense. So it is possible, but maybe not super likely.
All right, we'll get you out of here on this. 13 SEC teams made the NCAA tournament. 15 if you're counting Oklahoma and Texas. How many will we see in Oklahoma City?
Let me go look at the seeding, because really, you look at Alabama and Tennessee, if both win the regional, that's a guaranteed SEC team at OKC, and I think there's another one too. If you count just this year's SEC teams, not counting Texas and OU, because I think both of them will make it, which just shows how insanely deep the SEC is going to be in softball next year. But let's see. I'll go with 3. Yeah, that seems good, because you have Tennessee, Florida, Missouri is top 8 seeds. You also have Georgia, Alabama, Arkansas, LSU, A&M is top 16 seeds. So, yeah, we'll go with 3. That seems like a good number.
We'll be following it all right here on BamaCentral.com. Make sure you follow Katie Windham at Katie Windham _. She's about to go over to the Rhoads House to talk to Patrick Murphy and see what he's got to say about getting the team ready for this weekend. So make sure you follow her. If you want to watch that interview, it'll probably be up on the BamaCentral YouTube channel pretty soon. Katie, I appreciate your time today. Have fun this weekend. Hopefully the games go smoothly without delays.
Yes, thank you, Joe. Or really just that they let us know ahead of time. I won't be surprised if today we have some sort of contingency plan about kind of what's going to happen this weekend, just that I'm not camped out in the press box all weekend. But thanks for having me on.
Yes, ma'am. That's Katie Windham joining us, and we appreciate her time every single time she can join us. She's going to be covering the NCAA Softball Regional right here in Tuscaloosa all weekend long for us at BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. I'm hopeful that the girls can put it together just from a fun standpoint. It's more fun when the teams go deeper into postseason play. We'll see what they can do, and I appreciate everybody who's joined us and watched us today. You watched us on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. You listened to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. We appreciate everybody who subscribed, rated, reviewed the show. You can tell a friend about the show, and we'd appreciate you so, so much. We'll be back to talk to you again tomorrow right here on the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.